Begin today the Gemara on Daf Ayin Dalet Amud Aleph, 6 lines down from the top of the Yamud. My time that Rav Yonasan ben Shaul. So the Gemara brought here the Brai said that Rav Yonasan ben Shaul said regarding a raidif. We're discussing the sugya of a raidif, a person that's chasing to kill someone, or certain averis where in order to save the victim you can kill the raidif. And Rav Yonasan ben Shaul says, but if it's a case where you're able to injure this raidif and save the victim, you're not allowed to kill him. And if you do, you'll actually be chayiv misa for this. So the Gemara here brings the source for Rabbi Yonasan ben Shaul's halacha. So the Gemara, my time that Rabbi Yonasan ben Shaul, what's the source of this that Rabbi Yonasan ben Shaul said? Because the pasuk says, "V'chinatzu anoshim v'gaimer." It will be men that are fighting with one another. Pasuk goes on to say that these men were fighting, and then what happened was there was a woman there as well, and one of them went and hit a woman. And what happened is that she was pregnant and she miscarried because of this. That's the pasuk over there. The woman did not die, and then anish, but she lost her baby, and then you have to pay for the loss of the pregnancy. So now, Rabbi Elazar explains what kind of a fight are we talking about here? We're talking about two men fighting, and one is fighting to kill the other. Okay, so right here you see that this is basically a case of a raidif, because one is chasing the other or fighting the other in order to kill. If he's a raidif, that means that you're allowed to kill him in order to prevent him of killing. How do we know that it's talking about such a kind of fight? Because the pasuk says, "V'im yiyeh asain, v'im asin yiyeh," that is, if you will end up killing, then when asata nefesh tachas nefesh, then the person that killed is chayiv misa. If we're not talking about a fight where any of them were intending to kill, so then if he ends up killing someone inadvertently, b'sheigig, so then why would it say here when asata nefesh tachas nefesh? So it's clear that we're talking about a case of people fighting where it's a raidif. Okay. Now, it's interesting, the Mefarshim point out that here in the Gemara you see that it's bringing this up in the connection to this concept of raidif, that the concept of raidif applies even when you have two people that one is raidif the other. Till here we were talking about a case of a raidif where there's one that's chasing, the other one is just a victim running away. Here they're fighting with each other and one wants to kill the other, and still they're called a raidif. When there's a third person that sees this, he's supposed to save the life of one from the other, either one, to kill one in order that he shouldn't be a raidif. Okay, so now what does the Torah say about this case? Then the Torah here says that in a case where if the one that was trying to kill did not end up killing anyone, rather what happened is he caused just the loss of the pregnancy, the miscarriage. In such a case, anish is a punishment. And what does a punishment mean? That he has to pay for the loss of the pregnancy. So now the question is, why is he paying for the loss of the pregnancy? What's the rule? As we learned already before, when you're chayiv a more stringent punishment of misa, then you don't pay. So in this case, he was a raidif. If he was a raidif, he was chayiv misa. He didn't end up killing anyone. Instead, he caused the loss of the pregnancy. But why does he pay if he was chayiv misa? So the Gemara says, here's the source for what Rav Yonasan ben Shaul said. Because it will be understood if you say that if you're able to save the victim by injuring the raidif, so then you're not allowed to kill him. So I can explain the pasuk here. Therefore, it says that he has to pay, that the punishment is that he pays for the loss of the pregnancy. Why? Why is he paying for this? L'chayri is a raidif and he's already chayiv misa, you can kill him. So why does he pay for the money for the loss of the pregnancy? Because the case here is, this person could have just been injured. You didn't have to kill him. So he wasn't chayiv misa. If he's not chayiv misa, he pays for the loss of the pregnancy. But if you're going to say that even when you're able to save the victim by injuring him, you still are able to kill the raidif, so why is it saying here that he pays for the miscarriage of the pregnancy? He's a person that's chayiv misa, so you don't pay money. So this was Rav Yonasan ben Shaul's source, that if you're able to injure the person, he's not chayiv misa, you're not allowed to kill him. But the Gemara says, l'chayr, it's not a raya from here. Why? Because Dilma, I can tell you, your question basically is based on the point of kom le'b'derab minei. If he's chayiv misa, why is he paying money? But I can answer you and say, shani hacha, our case is different. Kom le'b'derab minei does not apply. Why? Because the misa lezeh, v'tashlumin lezeh. Kamle b'derabmine is only in a case where the chiyuv misa and the chiyuv of money that you're paying is all in connection to the same person. In our case, though, the misa is lezeh. The misa is the fact that one man was chasing another man and was trying to kill him. And the tashlumin is lezeh. The payment is for something else. The payment is for the fact that he went and caused the miscarriage for the woman, that she lost her baby. So the misa is for one and the tashlumin is for another. In such a case, there's no kamle b'derabmine. So even if you can't, even if you don't say that you must injure him and not kill him, even if you always could kill him, but nevertheless, kamle b'derabmine doesn't apply there. So therefore, there's no source of here for what Rabbi Yonasan ben Shal said.
That's interesting because it's the same person who has both.
It's the same person, true, but his chiyuv of misa is caused by one person that he wanted to kill, and the chiyuv tashlumin is another entity. In this case, the loss of the baby that he has to pay. So if the Gemara is arguing in such a case, there's no kamle b'derabmine. So the Gemara answers on this: no, loishna. There is no difference. Even if it's misa for one and tashlumin for the other, the concept of kamle b'derabmine still applies. Okay, so the Mefarshim, there's a big discussion about this because in other places it actually does say that in such a case there is no kamle b'derabmine. Right? Okay. But that's why here the Gemara says loishna. That makes no difference. There still should be a kamle b'derabmine, and the Gemara brings a proof for this. Because Rava said, or other guys Rab over here, regarding such a kind of case of a reidif, a person that's chasing to kill his friend, and on the way, vishiber esakelim. This reidif broke other people's kelim or any of his property of someone else. Ben shel nirdaf, whether the kelim that he broke is from the person that he's actually chasing. Ben shel kol adam, whether he broke kelim of any other person, potter. The reidif is going to be potter. Why is he potter? My time, because mischayev benafshehu. This reidif is chayev misa. So if he's chayev misa, he doesn't pay for any money damages. So what do you see over here? Even if he breaks kelim, not from the victim that he's chasing, even if he breaks someone else's kelim, he's also going to be potter to pay for that. Even though the chiyuv misa is for this that he's chasing this person, and the chiyuv mammon is for kelim that he broke that belonged to someone else. Nevertheless, I say that he's going to be potter. So here you see that by kamle b'derabmine, if the misa is for one and the payment is for another, it still applies. He's still going to be potter to pay for the money. Okay, now here the Gemara brings a continuation of what Rabbi said regarding the here when there's a damage or money damage. Now v'nirdaf, the victim that's being chased, sheshibir es hakelim shel reidef, if he, when he's running away, so he breaks kelim of the one that's chasing him, potter, he'll be potter to pay for this. Shel kol adam, if while he's running away he breaks things from other people, Chai, for this he will have to pay. So Rav explains why. Shel reidef potter, if he breaks something from the one chasing, it will be potter. His money is not more beloved than his body. You're allowed to kill the person that's chasing you. For sure, you're not going to be responsible to pay for damaging any of his property or any of his kelim. Shal kol adam, however, if you break any kelim while you're running away from any other person, chayiv, that you're going to have to reimburse. Because the rule is, shematzal atzmai b'mam chaveirei. In a case where you're saving your life using your friend's money, you have to reimburse him. You're allowed to, but then later you're going to have to reimburse him for this. Now, what's in a case where you have a person chasing someone, and now there's someone else, a third person that sees this, and he's the coming to save. He's coming to kill the reidif, and he's chasing after this reidif to kill him. And v'shibir is kelim, and this person coming to save breaks kelim while he's chasing this reidif. Ben shel reidif, whether he breaks kelim of the one that's chasing. Ben shel nirdaf, whether he breaks kelim of the victim himself. Ben shel kol adam, or he breaks any kelim of any other person. Potter, he'll be potter to pay for this. What's the reason here? This is me'ikir adin, he shouldn't be potter for this. But the reason why Chachamim instituted that he's potter, if you're not going to say so, then nimtza ein lecha kol adam shematzlas chaverim miyad hareidif. So then anybody that sees such a situation where there's one that's chasing someone else and he wants to save the victim, he's going to say to himself, why should I get involved? I'm going to go and get in my car and try to fly down the street, and I may cause damage, I may crash, I may this. I'm going to stay out of it. So therefore we say that he'll be potter for everything, so he won't think twice to go and save the person that's being chased. Going back to the Mishnah, it said, when you see a person that's chasing, he's running after an animal, he wants to do an aveda, to have a physical relation with an animal, in such a case, you don't save the life of the reidif, you don't save him and kill him in order for him not to do the aveda. And the Mishnah went on to say similar regarding Avodah Zarah or Chil Shabbos. You see a person wants to do Avodah Zarah or Bimachal Shabbos, you don't save him from the Aveda by killing him. But here the Gemara brings that there's other opinions of Tanaim that disagree. Tanya Nabrais will learn Rab Shimon ben Yochai Yomer, Havid Avedis Kechavim, a person that's going to serve Avodah Zarah. Nitin la'atziloi benafshay. You could save him by killing him first in order that he shouldn't do Avodah Zarah. And the source for this is Mikal v'chaymer. If in a case where a person wants to kill someone, or even less, he wants to go and blemish a girl by having a relation with her. So the Torah says that you can save this girl by killing the person that wants to do this. So pagam gavaya lekol sheken, one that wants to go and serve Avodah Zarah and cause a blemish, so to speak, for gavaya, for the Eibusher. That's what Avodah Zarah is. Definitely, you can save from happening by killing this raidif, by this person that wants to do Avodah Zarah. That's the Kal V'chaymer. Do we give any punishment in here, in this case, to allow, to kill this person, not to do Avodah Zarah, only based on a Kal V'chaymer? We have a rule, you never give an einish based on a Kal V'chaymer. Answers the Gemara, Kesavar Einshem Min Adin. Rab Shimon ben Yochai holds that you could give an einish even based on a Kal V'chaymer. So this is regarding Avodah Zarah. Now furthermore, the Gemara brings, Tanya Rabbi Lazar, but Rab Shimon Aimer, Rab Shimon said even more, HaMachal is HaShabbos. You see someone that wants to go and be Machal Shabbos, you could save this person from doing the Aveda by killing him. Why? What's the basis of this? Because number one, he holds like his father, that we have a source by Avodah Zarah that this is true because we learn it from a Kal V'chaymer. And now once we know that by Avodah Zarah, we learn out Shabbos from Avodah Zarah with the Gzeir Shaveh. By Shabbos it uses the expression of Chilul, Mechaleh, Mais Yumas. And by Avodah Zarah it says that you shouldn't give your child for Melech, Techal Hashem Hashem Alekecha. So we compare that Shabbos is the same like Avodah Zarah. Okay, now here the Gemara begins another concept, connection to what we're talking about Avodah Zarah, regarding the famous halacha of the Gimel Averis, the three Averis that are Yehorik Val Yaver, that a person has to be ready to die and not to be over on them. So Amar Rab Yechanan, Mishom Rab Shimon ben Yitzadak, Nimnu v'gamru ba'aliyas beis Nitzeh belud, that they took account and they concluded in this aliyah that it was in the place of Nitzeh, it's the name of a person that was in Lud. This was in a time period in Klal Yisrael. Yidden had very difficult time periods where there were decrees against Yidden. So therefore they sat down to teach the halacha to know when does a Yid have to be Meiseh Nefesh, give up his life, and when not. So they said as follows: Kol averis shebetayre, all averis in the Torah, ma'imnu l'adam avar v'al taharig. If a guy comes and tells you that only if you'll do this avera, then you won't be killed, so yaver v'al yaharig. The Yid has to do the avera and he should not die. Chutz ma'avedis kechavim v'gilui arayis v'shvichas damim. The only exception is the three averis of Avodah Zarah, gilui arayis, which refers to those kinds of arayis where there's a isser of kares or misas bezdin, not just a lav. Some even say actually that it includes the arayis of nida, which is also a kares, and a shvichas damim, and to spill blood, to kill someone. Those are the only three ones that a person has to be ready to die. By any other aveda though, and Rashi here explains, the concept is because the Torah says v'chai bem, mitzvahs are giving to Yidden to live. But if you have to die for the mitzvah, then you don't have to fulfill all the mitzvahs. V'chai behem. Now, but these three though are an exception of that pasuk v'chai behem, as the Gemara here is going to bring the source. First, the Gemara asks on this, v'hatanya. Sorry, by Avodah Zarah, you don't have to die. You don't have to be over the Avodah Zarah and not die. But Vatanya and Abraisa, we learned that this is the halacha that Amir Rabbi Shmuel said, "Minayin shem amru leil adam." How do I know if a guy tells a person Avodah Kechavim, serve Avodah Zarah v'al taharik, and you won't be killed? So Minayin sheyaved v'al yaharik, you should serve Avodah Zarah and you should not die. Talmud loyma v'chai bem. So he brings that this pasuk v'chai bem applies even to Avodah Zarah v'loy shiyamas bem, not to die. Yachayel, then he goes on to say, I would think afilu b'far hesye. This includes even if it's done publicly. Talmud Laima, regarding publicly, that's not only by Avodah Zarah, by all Avedas. When it's done publicly over here, there's another thing. It's Chil Hashem, besides the individual Aveda. And on this the pasuk says, V'lo yisachalu Hashem kachiv v'nigdashti. Not to desecrate Hashem's name, to sanctify Hashem's name. So if it's in public, over there the v'chai bem doesn't apply, because here there's another pasuk that says v'nigdashti. So here you clearly see that Rabbi Shmuel is saying that this includes even Avodah Zarah. Says the Gemara, it's a machlekes. Inu the Amor Kerabbi Lazar. What he brought before from Rabbi Yechanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Tzadok, they follow like it says, and what they said in the Aliyah of Lud, this is like Rabbi Lazar. The Tanya Rebbe Lazar, it says in the pasuk, "V'aftas Hashem lekecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meidecha." So it's describing the love for the Eibishter with all these to this extent. Levavcha, nafshecha, meidecha. What is this all saying? So b'chol levavcha means with all your heart, but what does b'chol nafshecha b'chol meidecha mean? So he explained, Im nema b'chol nafshecha, lo nema b'chol ma'idcha. Why does it have to say both of these? V'im nema b'chol ma'idcha. Once it says b'chol ma'idcha, lo nema b'chol nafshecha. So the answer is, Im yesh l'cha adam shegufay chavev alav mimaynei. A person, a normal person, that his body is more precious to him than his money. So lakach nema b'chol nafshecha. The Torah is saying you have to be ready to give up your life for the Eibishter. So here, this is the source, that Avos Hashem, which means not to serve Avodah Zarah, not to go away from the Eibishter, that's even to give up your life. And on the other hand, if you have an individual that his money is more precious than his body, for him the Torah is saying that a person has to be ready to give up every last penny that he has in order not to serve Avodah Zarah. That's the source from here. Rabbi Lazar says that here where you see that you have that Avodah Zarah is an exception. It's not included in the V'chai Behem. A person has to be ready to give up his life for Avodah Zarah. Gileadais and Shvichas Damim. What's the source for Gileadais and Shvichas Damim as well, that a person has to be ready to die for this? K'der Rebbe. The source is what Rebbe said in a Braisa. The Tanya Rebbe Yomer Rebbe said, when it says by the Naira Mayrasa, we had this before in the Fayin Gimel, it brought there that the pasuk says by the Naira Mayrasa, when one comes to have a relation with a Naira, which is already a Eshes, she's after the first stage of marriage, and he does it by force. So the pasuk says that she does not get any punishment for this. She's the victim. And then the pasuk goes on to give an example. Just like when you have someone that's murdering someone else, he's coming to murder someone else. Same thing here. Person is coming to have this relation with this girl by force, so she's a victim here. So why is the pasuk giving this mashal? Why is it saying this in comparison? What are we learning from Ritzeach that the pasuk is giving this example? So Mayata now say as follows: it's being used as an example to learn out from the Ritzeach, but we actually then end up learning from Naira Mayrasa to compare to Ritzeach. And as the Gemara is going to explain here now, that there's a point that you learn from Ritzeach to Naira Mayrasa, and there's a point that you learn from Naira Mayrasa to Ritzeach. So first you learn out Makish Ritzeach, the Naira Mayrasa. We compare the case of a Ritzeach to the Naira Mayrasa. And this we had before in the Gemara already. Just like by Naira Mayrasa, you are able to kill the Reidif that wants to do this to the girl and save her life, or save her from the Aveda. So too by a Ritzeach, you could kill the Reidif to save the victim. That's what you learn out from the Naira Mayrasa. Because, and the Gemara brought before in the Fayin Gimel, the source where we see by Naira Mayrasa that you're allowed to kill the person. And on the other hand, though, and that's what's relevant for what we're learning here, Umakish Naira Mayrasa l'Ritzeach. You compare the case of the Naira Mayrasa, which is a case of Gilead Arayis, to the Ritzeach. Ma Ritzeach, just like by a case of a Ritzeach, Yeharik Val Yaver. The halacha is that you have to be ready to die and not go and kill another Yid. And the Gemara is going to bring the source for this in a moment. Af Naira Mayrasa. So too by Naira Mayrasa, not to do Gilead Arayis, to have a relation with an Eshes Ish, to Harik Val Taver. You have to be ready to die, you should be killed, and not to do the Aveda. Now here, in the Girsa of our Gemara, it says it's Tei Horeg Val Taver, which is actually a Lashon Nekeva, which would be referring even to a woman in Gilead Arayis, that she should be ready to die and not to have such a kind of relationship. But many Agairis here, the Rishayim speak about this. Yei Horeg Val Yaver, referring to the man, because as we'll see on Amud Beis, the Gemara will say when it comes to a woman, she's not doing any act b'chlal. In the Maisa of Gilead Arayis, she's just passive, and therefore it's the man that's doing the Aveda. Only he has to be ready to die, but not the woman. But if you go in the Gemara Tei Horeg, it's only in a case where the woman is actually actively doing something. Then she has to be ready to die. Now, Varitzeach Gufim in Alon, what's the source regarding Varitzeach? That it's not included in the pasuk of V'chai Behem, and you say that he has to be ready to die and not to kill another Yid. The answer is Svarahu. This is actually something which is logical. What's the logic for this? There was the case of a person, or the Rabbah. There's a person that came in front of Rabbah, and he said to Rabbah, Amali Mari Duroi, the master or the mayor, the governor of my city said to me, Zil Kotla Laplanya, go kill this and this Yid. If you're not going to do so, Katlin Alach, I'll kill you. Amalei, so Rabbah told him, Liktelucha, they should kill you, V'loi Tiktel, and don't kill this other Yid. And he said to him as follows, Mi Yemer, the Doma, Didach, Sumik Tvei. Who says that your blood is redder than the other Yid? Maybe the blood of the other Yid is more red than yours, which means that the point why the Eibishter says that you have to save the life of a Yid or you don't die for the sake of doing in order not to do an Aveda, the V'chaibem. What was the point of the V'chaibem? That a Yid only lives to do an Aveda. Because of the love that the Eibishter has for the life of a Yid. The life of a Yid is more important than the mitzvah. And that's why it says V'chaibem. But how do you know that your life is more important than the other person's life? That you're going to save your life and kill the other person? So Rashi explains, this is the svara that we say that by Ritzeach, you can't say you can't say that Yaver, that you should be over and go and kill another Yid. Why? Because anyway, someone's life here is going to be taken. Elamai, the difference is, if you're going to kill the other Yid, then there's going to be two things. A life of Yid is going to be taken, and you did an Aveda. Or, if you don't take the other person's life, then your life is going to be taken, but in such a case, you didn't do an Aveda. A guy is going to kill you, but without doing an Aveda. So therefore, in such a case, there's no reason to be matter to go and kill another Yid. That's the way Rashi explains this Svara. And from that, we learn out that the same is also by Gilead Ayas. So as you see here in the Gemara, it's only by these three Avedas that we say Yehorik Val Yaver. There's a famous Machlokes Rishonim, whether what the Gemara is saying over here is that when it comes to all other Avedas, you're not allowed to be Maisa Nefesh. The Rambam says when it comes to other Avedas, because it says in the Torah V'chaibem, you're not allowed to be Maisa Nefesh. The Rambam says this also. But Taisvis and Masechta Avodah Zarah and other Rishonim say that the Torah is saying here that by the Gimel Avedas, you're obligated to give up your life. By the other Avedas, so then it's a person wants to give up his life, he's allowed, but he's not obligated to. It's a person's choice. That's what then. Both opinions are brought in the Shulchan Aruch. Also, the opinion that a person is allowed to give up his life for any other Aveda as well. Now, the Gemara brings that there's other scenarios where the mitzvah to give up your life or the obligation to give up your life will apply even if it's not from these three Avedas. Ki aser avdimi, Amar Rab Yechanan, lo yishanu, this whole distinction, this whole point that we said here, that it's only these three Avedas, that's Ela Shaloi B'Shas Gzeres HaMalchus. If it's not in a time where the government is making a decree to try to take away Yidden from Yiddishkeit. Av B'Shas Gzeres HaMalchus, but if it's a time when there's a Gzeder from the government to try to take away Yidden from Yiddishkeit, and Afila Mitzvah Kala, any mitzvah, any light mitzvah, Yehorig V'al Yaver. A person has to give up his life for Mesiris Nefesh. Ravin, another exception, when Ravin came, Rav Yechon, he said in the name of Rav Yechon, even if it's not in a time of a Gzeira, Lo Yamru Ela B'tzina. So this whole distinction that we said was only when it's in private. Ava b'farhesya, but if it's in public, then afilu mitzvah kala yaharik val yaver. Even a light mitzvah yaharik val yaver. That goes back to what we said before, because then when it's in public, then it's an issue of chil Hashem. Then even a light mitzvah. But you get to the case of Gzeres Malchus here. Rashi says the reason for this is why by Gzeres Malchus you have to be ready to die no matter what, and even if it's b'tzina, because you don't want goyim to think that they can make these Gzeres and cause Yidden to stop fulfilling Yiddishkeit. If Goyim are doing it with this purpose, and you can actually follow what they say, so then they'll break Yidden. They'll break their whole Yiddishkeit. When Goyim are making a Gzeira, then you have to be Meiser Nefesh, even on the smallest thing. So now here the Gemara says, what's my mitzvah kala? What's considered to be a mitzvah kala? Omar Rav bar Rav Yitzchak, Omar Rav, Afila, that includes even l'shanuye arkeset the mesana. Even to change a shoelace, to the way it's tied. The Goyim tie their shoes a certain way, and the Yidden tie their shoes in a different way. And Rashi here says that this is something where there's a tzad yahadus bedavar, meaning there's something about of a more modest way, the way Yidden behave, and they're doing it their way, and the Goyim do it in their way. That in such a case, it's just a minig ba'alma. It's just a custom that Yidden have. But nevertheless, if it's something which is b'farhesya, in such a case, you have to be meiser nefesh, even for such a kind of thing. Now, there are Rishonim that say that the point about this Akasa de Mesana is that it is connected to a mitzvah. You shouldn't follow the Goyim, the way they dress and the way their behavior and their minhagim are. So it's not stam a minig ba'alma, it's related to an actual mitzvah. But from Rashi, it's mashma that ein kam mitzvah le minig ba'alma. Even if it's a minig ba'alma mamish, a person has to be ready to be for Kiddush Hashem if it's something which is b'farhesya, if it's something in public. Says the Gemara v'kama farhesya. What's considered to be something which is in public? It's not less than 10 people. Now the Gemara says on this, Pshite, Yisrael and Binan. It's obvious that in these 10 people, there have to be Yidden as well. Because the Chsiv, by the Pasuk that we're saying, this is the source that before Hesi, you have to be ready to die. The Pasuk says, my name will be sanctified amongst Yidden, so there has to be Yidden there. But the Shaila is, Tisha Yisrael, V'nochri Echad Mao. What if it's 9 Yidden and 1 guy amongst them, or maybe even 8 or 2? but it's not all Yidden. In such a case, is this Befarhesia that you have to be ready to be Maisa Nefesh? So the Gemara answers, Tashema, the Tani Rav Yanai, Achud Rab Chia Barabe, Asya Toich. I learn out the word Toich that it says here, Nigdashi B'Seich B'nei Yisrael, with the word Toich that it says in another place. Ksiv Achav Nigdashi B'Seich B'nei Yisrael. Ksiv also by the Meraglim it says, He bodlu mi Toich Ha'eda Hazais, separate from this Eda. So Mala Allah Nasara, just like there it's 10, so over here is V'Kul Yisrael, and they're all Yidden, Afkan Asad V'Kul Yisrael. The halacha of being Maisa Nefesh, when it's B'far Hesyeh, because of a Kiddush Hashem, over here it's only when it's the 10 Yidden. Okay, there are actually some Mefarshim that say it's brought in the name of the Rakanti, was one of the Mekabalim. He said that in such a case, when a person is Maisa Nefesh B'far Hesyeh, you're fulfilling a mitzvah of Nikdashti B'Seich B'nei Yisrael, and there's a bracha you make to this. Like every mitzvah, you fulfill a bracha, or that you fulfill, you make a bracha. Before, when it spoke about the Gimel Avedas of Yehorik Val Yavar, it's not a fulfillment of a mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem. If it's done in private over there, you learn out from Sukkim that you have to be ready to die. But over here, when it's B'far Hesyeh, it's a mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, and there's a bracha that you make on this. And there are some that say, when it says here that it has to be a minyan of 10, it doesn't necessarily have to be men. It could be even women as well. Because even by women, this mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem applies as well. Okay, so now here the Gemara brings Benegeh to Esther. Frek the Gemara, Esther Pahesya Havoi. In the case of Esther, when she was taken to go and be the wife of Achashverosh, this was done publicly. And in a case where it's B'far Hestia and it's a Chil Hashem, you have to be ready to be Maisa Nefesh. So why did she go to Achashverosh? Why didn't she die? Now, so here, as you see, the Gemara is asking this question only mitzad the fact that this was done publicly. The Gemara doesn't ask the question much simpler, that Esther, it's this Gilead Arayis, one of the 3 Averis which are Yehorik Val Yaver. How could she go to Achashverosh? So there's a big Taisvis here, Barichas, about this, and one of the pshatim over here is that it's not actually a case of Gilead Arayis, because she was going to have a relation with a guy. And that's not a case of Gilead Arayis where there's an Isser of Karas or Mrs. Bezin. So this is not one of the Gilead Arayis which is Aser. And even though the Gemara says that she was already married to Mordechai and therefore she was an Eshes Ish, you'll have to say that our Gemara does not follow that opinion. So the Gemara is only asking mitzad the fact that what she was doing was in public. If it's in public, so then, even if it's not from the 3 Averis, it's Yehorik Val Yaver. Amar Abaya answers, Esther Karka Olam Hoisa. When Esther goes to be the wife of Achashverosh, she is doing nothing. She's completely passive in this. Even this, that before Hesed, you have to be ready to be Maisa Nefesh, it's only if you're doing something actively. Not in such a case where Achashverosh is the one that has the relation with her and he's active and she's doing nothing. She's like the ground, lying there. And therefore she does not have to be Maisa Nefesh for this. Rav says another rule, Hanoas Atzmon Shani. This halacha that we say here regarding the farhesia, that you have to be ready to buy Maisa Nefesh, that's only in a case where the guy is threatening the Yid that he should do this Aveireh. Why? In order to take him away from Yiddishkeit. Not if the guy is doing it for his own personal pleasure. In a case where he's doing it for his own personal pleasure, in such a case, before Hesi, you don't have to be Maisa Nefesh. Because the guy, it's not a Chil Hashem. When the Yid is doing the Aveireh, the guy is doing it for his pleasure. If the guy is doing it to take a Yid away from the Eibishter, then it's going to be a Chil Hashem. But not if he's doing it for his own Anah. According to most Rishonim, this heter of Hanas Atzmon is only regarding this point that we're talking about over here. That's before Hesia. When it comes to the 3 Averis of Adizara, Gilerais, and Shvichas Damim, over there is no heter of Hanas Atzmon. There is the Balamar, there is one of the Rishonim that says that even regarding that also, but most Rishonim say that Hanas Atzmon is only going on what we're talking about here, which is before Hesia. And the Gemara proves this, if you're not going to say this is true, Hani Kvaki Vidimuniki. These kvaki v'dimuniki were these kind of copper vessels that were used to place coals inside of them, that were used in the times of the Goyim when they had their holidays and they were serving Avodah Zarah, and they used these expensive, nice vessels to place coals in them to heat themselves up from them. Now, the Goyim would go and collect this even from Yidden, that they would have to pay and give this as well. How are we doing this? How are we giving Goyim these vessels, these coals to be able to heat themselves up with this? And it's being used in the times of their holidays by the time of Avodah Zarah. Ella, the answer is, the reason they're forcing Yidden to give this, but they're doing it Hanas Atzmon Shani. Since the Goyim are doing it for their own personal benefit, they're not doing it because they're trying to make Yidden serve Avodah Zarah. They're doing it for their own Anah, so therefore this is different, therefore it's allowed. Hanami over here as well, Anas Atzmon Shani. Over here, when Achashverosh did was for his own Anah, and she is just passive. Esther is just passive in this, right? Or even if not, but it's not one of the 3 Averis of Yehorik Val Yaver. As I mentioned before, it's only the issue of Bifar Hesia. Over here, Anas Atzmon is allowed. Rav follows his reasoning. The Amar Rav also said in another case as well. Akum the Amalei Lahai Yisrael, a guy that says to a Yid on Shabbos, K'toilas pasta b'Shabbata, cut this grass for me on Shabbos, and then v'shadi l'chiyusoi, feed it to my animals. So why is the guy telling the Yid to do this? Because he wants to make a Yid be mechal Shabbos? No, he wants him to feed his animals. And v'yilai ketinolach, if not, I'll kill you. So the halacha is liktol v'loy liktolei. He should go and cut the grass, and he should not be killed, even though this is before Hesya. But the reason is because he's doing it for his own anna, and in such a case, there's no chilul Hashem, and you have to be mechal Shabbos, or you could be mechal Shabbos. However, if the guy says to the Yid, shadi lenara, cut the grass and just throw it into the river, in such a case, it's clear that he's just trying to force the Yid to be mechal Shabbos before Hesya. That's a chilul Hashem. So liktolei, the Yid has to be ready to die, v'loy liktol, and he should not cut the grass. My time, what's the reason for this? La buri milsaka boy. Here it's clear that he just wants you to violate Shabbos, to be machal Shabbos. Now another boy, the Gemara asks, boy, mirabami. The Shaila was asked from Rabami. Ben Noyach, mitzuva kiddush Hashem, or mitzuva kiddush Hashem. A guy has the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noyach. Is the halacha of a guy also have this kiddush Hashem that he has to be ready to fulfill his Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noyach, and he has to die if he's being threatened? Amar Abaye, so Abaye said, Toshama, I'll bring you a proof, because it says, Sheva mitzvahs nistava b'nei Noyach. Goyim were only commanded to do 7 mitzvahs. Ve'mise, if you're going to say a guy is to be ready to die in order to fulfill these Sheva mitzvahs, Tamani Avi, so then it's 8, it's not 7. Amalei Rav, so Rav says, no, that wouldn't be considered to be an 8th. Inu v'chala bizrayu. When it says that there's 7, it means 7 and everything that's associated with it. So the fact that he has to be ready to die for it, that's just the extent of fulfilling all the Sheva mitzvahs. It's not an 8th though. So the shaila still remains whether there's a concept of Kiddush Hashem by a guy that he has to be ready to die in order to fulfill his Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. So the Gemara says, "My havi Allah." What's the answer to this? Amar Avad Barave. He said, "Omri Beirav." He said, "Beirav." Ksiv. The pasuk says, "L'davar hazeh yislach Hashem la'avdocha." Now what this pasuk is talking about is, this is Naaman. Naaman was a minister, or not a minister, he was a general in the army of Aram. And he came to Elisha, and he tells Elisha, I'm not going to serve Avodah Zarah anymore. However, there's one thing that you're going to have to forgive me that I have to do, and that is that when I come with the king of Aram, and he's coming to serve Beis Rimai, which is a house of Avodah Zarah, so the king leans on me, and therefore I have to bow to the Avodah Zarah. But I'm not going to serve, I'm just doing it because the king wants to lean on me. Uksiv, what does it say in the pasuk when Naaman told this to Elisha? Avodah Zarah is one of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. A guy is not allowed to serve Avodah Zarah. And here Naaman, a guy, is saying to Elisha that I'm not going to serve Avodah Zarah, but in a case where I have to do it for the sake of the king, I'll do it. So it says, Elisha accepted this. Go in peace. So what the question is, why did he say to him, go in peace? If you're going to say that a guy has to be ready to be my son, Kiddush Hashem, so he shouldn't say to him that he should go in peace. Why is he saying to him, go in peace? In other words, he agreed to what he's saying. So Rashi here says, true, he didn't have to rebuke him. There's a mitzvah of hechech techiach. By a yid, you have to be mechiach a yid when he does an aveda. By a guy, there's no mitzvah of hechech techiach. But he's doing an isser. So he's going to bow to Avodah Zarah. So why was he saying to him, lech l'shalom, okay, go in peace? So the Gemara is saying, from this you could prove that in a case where a guy is forced to serve Avodah Zarah, like over here, this general in the army, Naaman, he was forced to serve Avodah Zarah together with the king, that he had to go with him to this space Rimai to serve Avodah Zarah, so the guy is not obligated to give up his life. So the Gemara says, no, it depends what the case is. Ha b'tzineh, ha b'farhesye. By Naaman, that story it was in private. In such a case, he doesn't have to give up his life. There's no other Yidden over there. B'farhesye would mean when there's other Yidden over there. But if it's a case where there's other Yidden over there, so then in such a case, b'soich b'nei Yisrael, so over there, b'farhesye is different. Over there, he would have to give up his life for this as well. Yeah.